Court paperwork explains 20-year-old Antoine Ware and his 21-year-old ex-girlfriend Jasmine Dunbar met up Tuesday night so he could take a paternity test. But Jasmine never returned. Gail Gavani lives near 107th Avenue in Camelback when police made the gruesome discovery.
And so I came out here, and all the police officers were coming from everywhere. They came from this way, that way, everywhere, and they all drove to that one area. It's really sad. It's really sad.
On March 6th, 2018, a couple driving near 83rd Avenue in Camelback made a discovery that would forever etch this day into the city's darkest history. A baby, just 7 months old, sitting alone in a car seat, no blanket, no protection, no mother in sight. Next to her, a diaper bag, a wallet, an ID, one adult-sized sneaker, all belonging to a young woman named Jasmine Dunbar. She was 21 years old, a mother, a daughter, a friend. She was loved, and she was missing. Over the next 48 hours, what unfolded was a nightmare. A story that begins with a paternity test and ends in fire, in betrayal, in the unthinkable. And at the center of it all, a man she once trusted, the father of her child, Antoine Ware. This is not a story about headlines. It's not just a crime statistic. This is a story about choices, about warnings ignored, about a young woman whose life was extinguished in the most brutal, senseless way yet, who deserves to be remembered not for how she died, but for how she lived. This is not just a true crime case. This is a plea, a lesson, a memory. Because Jasmine's story could be anyone's story. I'm inviting you to bear witness, to listen to feel, and to never forget. This is the story of Jasmine Dunbar. Before the horror, before a city asked, why? There was Jasmine. Jasmine Dunbar was 21 years old. But age doesn't tell the story of a person. It doesn't tell you how she smiled with her whole face. It doesn't tell you that she danced around the living room with her baby in her arms just to make her laugh. It doesn't tell you that she was trying to make things work, trying to be strong, trying to give her daughter a life better than her own. She wasn't famous. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't the kind of woman the world usually notices. But maybe that's the point, because women like Jasmine are everywhere. Jasmine Dunbar was born and raised in Phoenix. She had dreams, some big, some simple. She wanted to go back to school eventually. She wanted to raise her daughter the right way. And more than anything else, she wanted love. Real love. The kind that protects. The kind that uplifts. The kind that doesn't disappear when things get hard. She had her daughter young. And like so many young mothers, she learned to put someone else's needs before her own. She gave everything she had to that baby. And she was proud to be her mother. According to friends, Jasmine wasn't just kind. She was resilient. She laughed easily. She loved deeply. She forgave too much. Some said she wore her heart on her sleeve. Others said she was too trusting. But that was Jasmine. She saw the good in people, even when she probably shouldn't have. And that brings us to him, Antoine Ware, the father of her child.
So your name and your date of birth?
Antoine Trayvon Ware, date of birth 06/12/1997.
Thank you. Can I get appearances, please?
Scott Wolfram for the state, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Amy Kalman and Eleanor Knowles on behalf of Mr. Ware, who is present and in custody.
Thank you. Sir, you are here on a new case out of Superior Court. The counts are 1 count of murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony, 1 count of kidnapping, a Class 2 felony, 1 count of child or vulnerable adult abuse, a Class 2 felony, and 1 count of abandoning or concealing dead body parts, a Class 5 felony. Does the state wish to be heard at all on probable cause at this time?
Your Honor, the state has significant concerns about the subject's flight risk, safety to other witnesses in this matter, and to the community based on the facts that have been provided in the probable cause statement. It's self-explanatory in terms of the nature of the allegations before the subject. State's requesting a $1 million security appearance bond in this matter.
Okay, thank you. We'll get to that in a moment. The court is appointing the Public Defender's Office to represent you, Mr. Ware. You have a status conference on March 15th at 8:30 and a preliminary hearing on March 19th at 8:45. Both of those are at 175 West Madison. Do you wish to be heard on release conditions at this time?
Yes, Your Honor. There's nothing in the Form 4 that would indicate there is any threats or danger to any witnesses. There's no indication that Mr. Ware has any failures to appear or any criminal history of any kind. Additionally, Mr. Ware is employed. He is an electrician with 10 Power Electricity. He's a high school graduate. And he has, as I said, no criminal history of any kind. He also has substantial local ties with a mother, brother, father, and aunt, all living in Phoenix.
Okay. Anything else from either party?
No, Your Honor.
The court is going to set a secured appearance bond in the amount of $1 million. Mr. Ware, if you post that bond, you will be on pretrial supervision with electronic ankle monitoring. You may not return to the scene of the crime. No contact with any of the victims or next of kin in this case. No contact with any of the witnesses or officers. No weapons, no drugs without a valid prescription, and no alcohol. Is there anything else that I need to address from either party at this time?
Your Honor, have you found probable cause on all of the charges?
Yes, I have. Did you wish to be heard on probable cause?
Your Honor, I would like to note that there is no indication of any premeditation or premeditation style action in the Form 4. The entirety of the state's evidence as to Mr. Ware's alleged involvement comes from statements he's made to police, none of which back up any premeditation or possibility of premeditation.
Mr. Wolfram, do you wish to address that or no?
Your Honor, I believe the probable cause statement is clear as to the nature of the actions that took place here.
The court does find sufficient probable cause for all 4 counts at this time. Anything additional from either party?
No, Your Honor, and I don't really question the appointment of the Public Defender's Office. I don't know if that's defense counsel's claim. Are you from the Public Defender's? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. I misunderstood that part. Thank you.
Anything additional?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
From counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Sir, please step to the right. You're going to sign for your paperwork at this time, okay?
A man she once believed in. A man who would soon become her greatest threat. But we're not there yet. Not just yet. Because Jasmine's story deserves more than just a crime scene. She was a daughter. She was a mother. She was loved by her whole family. She deserved more. In the days before her death, Jasmine was doing what so many young moms do, trying to build a bridge with her child's father, trying to make peace, trying to be civil, if only for her daughter's sake. It was Aunt Juan who asked her to meet. It was Aunt Juan who insisted they take a paternity test. And it was Jasmine who said yes. Not because she had to, but because she believed he needed to know. She thought this was the start of something better, a chance to finally bring clarity, maybe even stability, to a life that had been so uncertain. She didn't know. She couldn't know that agreeing to meet him that day would be the last decision she'd ever make. They say time heals, but for those who love Jasmine, time has only deepened the silence. Because when you lose someone like her, a woman who was doing everything she could just to survive, to protect her child, to make things work in a world that offered her no shortcuts, you don't just lose a person, you lose a future, a birthday, a graduation, a bedtime story, all gone. Jasmine Dunbar was human, hopeful, and taken far too soon. Her name was Jasmine Dunbar, and she mattered. It started like many stories do. 2 people, a brief relationship, one that would leave behind consequences far deeper than either of them could have imagined. Jasmine Dunbar and Aunt Juan Ware met sometime in 2017. Their connection? Complicated. Details about how they met remain private, but what we do know is that the relationship didn't last long. By the time their daughter was born, Jasmine and Aunt Juan were no longer together. They weren't building a home. They weren't sharing milestones. What they shared was uncertainty. Aunt Juan didn't believe the child was his. He didn't deny the encounter. He didn't accuse her of lying outright. But he questioned her. And Jasmine, she carried that doubt. Not for herself, but for her child. Because she believed that one day her daughter would ask the question, "Where is my father?" And Jasmine wanted to be able to say she tried. So when Antoine reached out, asking Jasmine to meet, to take a paternity test, she said yes. She brought her daughter. She brought her ID. She brought trust. What she didn't bring was fear, because Jasmine didn't see him as dangerous. She saw him as uncertain, immature maybe, but not violent, not cruel. But behind Antoine's silence, behind the request for a test, something else was stirring. He wasn't just skeptical, he was angry. And not just at Jasmine, but at the pressure, the responsibility, the fear of being tied to something or someone he never intended to care for. They met that evening. He picked Jasmine up in his car with their baby. He told her they were going to get the test, but they never made it there. Something happened in that car. We'll never know the exact words exchanged. We'll never hear Jasmine's side. But what we do know is that the situation turned violent. In the end, Antoine Ware would confess to it all. He claimed they got into an argument. He claimed Jasmine hit him. He claimed he snapped. And what came next would defy logic. It would shatter Jasmine's family. And it would leave a baby girl, his daughter, abandoned in the cold night air. Let's be clear. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment fight. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't an accident. This was an evil choice. A series of deliberate, irreversible choices. From the moment he raised his fists, to the moment he poured gasoline over her body, to the moment he left that baby behind on the side of a road and drove away. All Jasmine ever asked for was the truth. All she ever wanted was for her daughter to know her father. And the man who could have stepped into that role instead tried to erase them both. You need to also know this. There were no restraining orders, no criminal records between them, no warning signs the world could point to prior to this unexpected and deadly event. Just a quiet storm, brewing beneath the surface, waiting for the moment it would strike. This wasn't just about paternity. This was about power, about control, about a man who could not bear to lose face, and a woman who deserved far more than what he gave her. And what happened next will haunt us all. At approximately 9 p.m., phone records placed them in the area of 107th Avenue and Camelback Road. Somewhere between that moment and the next hour, Jasmine vanished. We don't know the exact minute. We don't know the exact blow. What we do know is what Antoine Ware later told detectives. He claimed there was an argument. He claimed Jasmine hit him. He claimed he blacked out. He said he beat her, left her in the car, drove her to a remote desert area near 107th Avenue. And there, with his baby still in the back seat, he poured gasoline on her body, struck a match, and set her on fire. But that wasn't the end. He wasn't finished. Antoine then drove away, with his daughter still in the car. He drove until he reached the intersection of 83rd Avenue and Camelback Road. He pulled over, took his infant daughter, Jasmine's baby, out of the car, placed her car seat on the sidewalk, left the diaper bag beside her, and walked away. At approximately 10:15 p.m., a couple driving by noticed something strange, something that made them stop. A baby, alone, unmoving, silent. They pulled over, called 911. Officers arrived on scene. The baby was cold, confused, but alive. But the mystery was just beginning. Next to the baby was Jasmine's ID, her purse, her wallet, one adult-sized shoe. No Jasmine. Phoenix PD issued a missing persons alert. They traced the car seat, the wallet, the child. And within hours, they had a name. Antoine Ware. He was located quickly, questioned, detained. And when they asked him what happened, he told them a story. But this wasn't a man confessing in grief. This was a man justifying, explaining. She hit me. I blacked out. I panicked. I burned her body. He took them to the location. Desert brush, scorched sand, the smell of burned flesh still clinging to the air. And there, barely identifiable, were the charred remains of Jasmine Dunbar, a mother, a daughter, left in a shallow grave of ash and heat. Her body was so badly burned, the coroner had difficulty determining her final injuries. But the trauma was clear. Blunt force, burns, no dignity, and her baby left behind. She had been abandoned in the middle of the street, unharmed physically, but the scars from that night, they'll never truly heal. One moment, one ride, one man's decision to erase his responsibility by destroying the woman who carried his child. All of it in 1 hour, on one night.
Today, Ware appeared in court.
Antoine Trayvon Ware, date of birth.
In graphic and disturbing detail, he admitted to police that he got into a fight with Jasmine, beat her up, dumped her in a field, and then drove a few miles away to abandon her baby in this neighborhood. Detectives say he returned to where he left Jasmine, poured gasoline on her body, set her on fire with a cigarette, and watched her burn. Gail Gavani lives near 107th Avenue in Camelback when police made the gruesome discovery.
And so I came out here, and all the police officers were coming from everywhere. They came from this way, that way, everywhere, and they all drove to that one area. It's really sad. It's really sad, and yeah, it's too close to home.
Tonight, Ware sits in the Maricopa County Jail on a $1 million bond. He faces several charges, including kidnapping and child abuse. Jasmine's family is asking for privacy tonight. I'm told they do have her baby girl, and she's doing okay.
In a quiet city, where Jasmine believed she was just doing the right thing. That was March 6th, the day Jasmine Dunbar vanished from this world. But her story? It's just beginning. The call came in just after 10 p.m. A baby girl, alone on the sidewalk, strapped into her car seat, a diaper bag beside her. No mother, no guardian, nothing but questions. The first officers on the scene didn't know her name, didn't know who left her. But they knew one thing: this child had been left intentionally. And whoever did it wouldn't have gone far. Phoenix police quickly located Jasmine Dunbar's identification inside the diaper bag, her wallet, her driver's license, and tucked beside it a single pink baby sock, a chilling clue, a breadcrumb, a beginning. That same night, officers visited Jasmine's family. They hadn't heard from her. She hadn't returned their calls. And when they heard she was last seen with Antoine Ware, everything shifted. Antoine was brought in for questioning. His demeanor? Cold, flat, not angry, not panicked, just calculated. Detectives began the process carefully, methodically. Where did you last see Jasmine? Was the baby with her? Why did you leave her on the sidewalk? And then the story changed. Again and again. First, Antoine said he dropped Jasmine off at a friend's house. Then he said she walked away after an argument. Then, the truth began to crack through. Antoine admitted they argued. Admitted he hit her. Admitted he panicked. Admitted he burned her. It wasn't a confession of remorse. It was a confession of control. The next morning, he led detectives to the location, a remote patch of desert brush near 107th Avenue. There, among blackened rocks and scorched cactus, were the remains of Jasmine Dunbar, so badly burned, so violently disposed of. It took forensic experts days to confirm what her mother already feared. Her daughter wasn't coming home. The Phoenix Police Department began building their case. They processed the crime scene, recovered traces of accelerant, identified the vehicle used, and within 48 hours, Antoine Ware was arrested and booked on first-degree murder, abandonment of a child, tampering with evidence, kidnapping. The media picked up the story. Phoenix mother found burned in desert. Infant left on sidewalk. Father arrested in brutal killing. And while the headlines were cold and clinical, inside Jasmine's family, inside her mother, her friends, her community, the grief burned hotter than anything Antoine had poured on her body. This wasn't just murder. This was erasure. A man so unwilling to take responsibility that he chose annihilation instead of accountability. And yet, even in the face of this horror, the investigation became something more than paperwork. Detectives fought to give Jasmine's family answers. Forensic teams worked overtime to gather every piece of the puzzle. Child welfare advocates stepped in to ensure Jasmine's baby was safe, protected. surrounded by love. And as the pieces fell into place, a case of unthinkable cruelty became airtight. Because Antoine didn't just confess. He led them to the evidence. He tried to clean the car. He tried to hide the gas can. But the timeline couldn't be erased. And Jasmine's voice, though silenced, echoed through every moment of that investigation. She had trusted him, believed in peace. And even in her last hours, she chose to show grace. But the system would not show grace to him. Antoine Ware was indicted, and Jasmine Dunbar Young, vibrant, hopeful Jasmine, became a name in every Phoenix household. A mother, a daughter, a victim. The investigation was complete. But justice? Justice was only beginning. The news broke on a Wednesday morning. Phoenix. Burned body found in the desert. Identified as 21-year-old Jasmine Dunbar. The headlines were brutal. But the reality? Far worse. Word spread quickly. From neighborhood Facebook groups to local news stations. From downtown Phoenix to cities across the country. And almost instantly, outrage began to rise. Who could do this to a mother? To a daughter? To a child? How could a man, any man, burn the mother of his child? Then abandon that baby on the side of the road? The public needed answers. But what they really wanted was justice. Vigils were held across Phoenix. Dozens of candles. Rows of teddy bears. Handwritten signs taped to desert fence posts, reading, "Jasmine deserved better. We won't forget you. You were loved." Her mother, devastated but strong, stood before the cameras. Her voice cracked. But her message was clear. She was my baby girl. She didn't deserve this. I want justice for Jasmine. I want people to know what he did to her. And I want people to remember her, not just for how she died, but for how she lived. Friends described Jasmine as gentle, kind, smart, someone who loved her baby more than anything. They said she had goals, plans, a future she was fighting to build. But Antoine Ware took that future away. In one night, the outrage wasn't just emotional. Community leaders and women's rights advocates began speaking out. Domestic violence organizations pointed to Jasmine's case as a devastating example of what happens when abuse escalates unchecked. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment killing, one advocate said. This was deliberate. This was planned. This was monstrous. Calls flooded Phoenix hotlines. Women asking for help. Women saying, "I saw myself in Jasmine." And perhaps most heartbreaking, mothers clutched their daughters tighter. Fathers wept at the thought of their own children lost. Because Jasmine's murder, it didn't just take one life. It shook an entire city awake. National media picked up the story. Networks like ABC, NBC, and CNN reported on the tragic murder. But it was the emotional weight, the human cost, that lingered in every viewer's heart. Because Jasmine wasn't just a name. She wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, a best friend, a mother. And her baby left on that sidewalk became the haunting image that no one could forget. The community raised funds for Jasmine's funeral. Her daughter was placed in safe care. Family surrounded her, protected her, loved her. But no amount of love could undo what happened. No vigil could erase the horror. And still, the community stood up. Together, in grief, in rage, in Jasmine's name. The outrage became purpose. The pain turned into action. Because while Jasmine was silenced, her story would not be. Not in Phoenix. Not in Arizona. Not anywhere. And as the community braced for the trial, one thing was clear. Jasmine Dunbar would not be forgotten. When Antoine Ware was booked into Maricopa County Jail, the charges against him were already overwhelming. 1 count of first-degree murder, 1 count of kidnapping, 1 count of abandonment or concealment of a dead body, 1 count of child abuse. Each charge carrying the weight of a life destroyed. But the justice system is never quick. It crawls. It turns victims into case numbers, families into witnesses, and grief into legal filings. March 2018. Ware's first appearance. He stood in front of a judge, expressionless, indifferent. The prosecution laid it out clearly. Antoine Ware posed a significant risk to the community. He had deliberately burned a body, left an infant alone, and attempted to hide evidence. There would be no bond, Ware would sit behind bars as the full weight of his actions caught up to him. The case moved forward. Evidence was cataloged. The burned remains of Jasmine Dunbar. Forensic confirmation of accelerants on the body. Cell phone data tracking Antoine's movements. His own confession, recorded during interrogation. And perhaps most chilling, photographs of the desert where Jasmine was found. Where he thought no one would look. But Ware didn't plead guilty. Not immediately. He watched the calendar stretch, month after month. Hearings delayed. Motions filed. Lawyers changed. For Jasmine's family, every court date was a wound reopened. They showed up anyway, clutching photos of her, wearing purple ribbons the color for domestic violence awareness, staring him down in silence, demanding justice with nothing but presence. The prosecution made it clear. This wasn't a crime of passion. It was premeditated, cold, calculated. They planned to pursue the maximum life in prison without the possibility of parole. And the defense? They had little ground to stand on. No alibi. No alternative theory. No explanation that could erase what Antoine Ware had already confessed to. But even in cases this clear, the wheels of justice move painfully slow. Every delay, every continuance felt like another blow to Jasmine's loved ones. And through it all, her baby girl, now a toddler, continued to grow. Without her mother. Without answers. But surrounded by love. As the years passed, the case remained active. Ware sat behind bars. He never spoke publicly. Never showed remorse. Never reached out to Jasmine's family. He simply waited. Let the legal machine grind on. As though time could somehow wash away what he'd done. But Jasmine's memory never faded. Public interest in the case remained high. Advocates for victims of intimate partner violence cited Jasmine's story in rallies and seminars. She had become a symbol, not just of what was lost, but of what must never be ignored again. Finally, after years of delays, the legal team prepared for trial. The evidence was strong. The prosecution's case was airtight. And there was a quiet confidence that justice was coming. And yet, the trial would never happen. Because before the trial date was officially set, Antoine Ware entered a plea. Guilty to first-degree murder. No trial, no jury, just cold admission. And a sentence that reflected the magnitude of what he'd done. Natural life in prison. He would never walk free again. Never see the sky without bars between it and him. Never touch the daughter he left on that Phoenix sidewalk. But even with the sentence, there was no peace. No undoing. No closure. Because justice in this case wasn't about winning. It was about surviving. And Jasmine's family, her mother, her friends, her baby continued to survive. Day by day. Without her. Justice had been served. But Jasmine was still gone. And now, the story turned to what happens next. After the sentencing, there were no cheers. No celebration. No sense of victory. Because in real life, justice never feels like enough. Jasmine Dunbar was still gone. Her baby girl, growing older every day, would never hear her mother's laugh again. Never feel her arms. Never know her voice. And for Jasmine's family, the road to healing had only just begun. Her mother, devastated but determined, made a choice. She would not let her daughter's story fade into statistics. She would not allow Jasmine to be remembered only for the way she died. Instead, she would fight. She began speaking at vigils and domestic violence awareness events. She gave interviews. She told the story again and again so the world wouldn't forget. My daughter didn't deserve this. No woman does. If Jasmine's story can save just one life, then her voice isn't gone. It's louder than ever. In time, Jasmine's name became a symbol of resilience, of the dangers too many women face behind closed doors, of how even the people closest to us can turn deadly, and most of all, a reminder of how quickly life can change in the hands of someone you once trusted. Across Phoenix, conversations began to shift. People asked harder questions about dating violence, about warning signs, about what it means to truly protect women, especially Black women, from violence that too often goes ignored. Jasmine's daughter remained in the loving care of family. She's safe. She's surrounded by people who will remind her who her mother was, not just how she was lost. They show her pictures. They tell her stories. They hold her when the weight of it all becomes too much. Her mother's spirit lives on in her eyes. And even though she'll never remember that night, the world will. Because we must. Every year, new names are added to the list of lives lost to intimate partner violence. But every name is a story. Every victim is a human being. Jasmine was not just a victim. She was a mother, a daughter, a friend, a young woman who had dreams, who loved deeply, and who deserved a life far longer than 21 years. Her legacy is one of awareness, of remembrance, of action. And her story, as painful as it is, must continue to be told. Because silence never saved anyone. And by speaking Jasmine's name, we carry her with us. We protect others. We stand for a future where no one has to suffer as she did. In memory of Jasmine Dunbar, you are not forgotten. You are not just a headline. You are loved. When a story like Jasmine Dunbar's ends, our responsibility doesn't. Because Jasmine's case wasn't just a rare tragedy. It was a reflection. A mirror held up to a society that too often fails its most vulnerable. Domestic violence is not a private issue. It's not someone else's problem. It's a public crisis. In the United States, women are mostly killed by a current or former intimate partner every day. And black women like Jasmine are disproportionately affected. Not because of who they are, but because of the systems around them. Because when black women report abuse, they're less likely to be believed, more likely to be criminalized, less likely to receive help. Their pain is often dismissed, their warnings ignored, their deaths turned into statistics. But behind every number is a human being, a life, a story, a voice that should have been heard. We have to ask ourselves, how many Jasmines were told, "He doesn't seem that bad. Just give it time. You're overreacting." How many tried to leave and were punished for it? How many were just trying to protect their children when the system failed to protect them? This isn't just about crime. This is about culture, about the silence we allow, about the excuses we make, about the warning signs we miss. Because violence doesn't always look like a black eye. Sometimes it looks like control, like isolation, like manipulation disguised as love. And if we don't talk about it, we become complicit. So what can we do? We can listen. We can believe survivors. We can educate ourselves and those around us. We can challenge the stigma. We can stop asking, why didn't she leave? And start asking, why did he hurt her? We can hold systems accountable, demand better laws, better response times, better support for victims. We can raise sons who don't equate love with control. We can raise daughters to know their worth. We can create a world where stories like Jasmine's are the rare exception, not the rule. Because Jasmine Dunbar deserved so much more than what the world gave her. And we owe it to her and to every victim to never let her story die in silence. So let's speak her name, Jasmine Dunbar. Let it echo in our conversations, in our classrooms, in our relationships. Let it remind us that every woman lost to intimate partner violence is one too many. This has been Jasmine Dunbar's story. We told it so no one else would have to. Thank you for watching this story. Thank you for listening. Because stories like Jasmine's deserve to be heard. And by watching, you've honored her memory and the memories of countless others. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the world around us, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. There are so many more stories like Jasmine's that need to be told, stories of injustice, resilience, and hope. By subscribing, you help us shine a light on those who need it most. You join the mission to end domestic violence. And together, we can make sure that these stories are never forgotten. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another important story. And if you or someone you know is struggling, reach out. You are never alone. Once again, thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay strong.